Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Be a Better You podcast. I am your host, Allison K. Dagny, a subconscious reprogramming expert and a survivor of many years of emotional abuse. And I am here today to help you with all things recovery from trauma, from emotional abuse, from narcissistic abuse, any of those things that I can help you with, I want to do. Now, if you're someone who's ever thought, I just need to move on or I should be over this by now, then this episode is for you. So today we are going to be talking about the real foundation of healing after emotional abuse. And it's not coping skills. It's not journaling. It's not all of these other tools. It's not even forgiveness. What this is self-love, but it's not the fluffy kind. And what I mean by this, it's the kind of self-love that you actually feel worthy. You actually feel connected to yourself. This is the root. This is the foundational piece to getting you where you want to be. It starts here. Now, also want to make a distinction. This is not about self-care, right? Self-care is a part of self-love. Self-care is an action that you take to cultivate self-love. But the kind I'm talking about here is a real deep sense of worthiness and love that's built right inside of you. Now, most women who are healing from emotional abuse, trauma, toxicity, narcissistic relationships believe that healing begins when their ex is out of their life, when they don't have to deal with them anymore. But the truth is, healing starts when you decide, okay? And you might be saying, well, I want to be healed and I want to feel better and I want to feel worthy. And I understand because I used to feel this way too. But real true healing starts when you make a choice, when you decide you don't want this other person in control of your life anymore. And what I mean by in control of your life is, I mean, they're no longer able to affect how you feel. They're no longer able to make you angry. They're no longer able to create frustrations, guilt, sadness, regret, or any of those kinds of emotions inside of you. You take your power back. You are an emotional master of yourself. Okay, but again, this all starts with self-love. And many of you might be like, oh no, not this again. But it is so important and so true. So I'm going to go through this and explain to you and give you some real actionable shifts in this episode so that you can start to cultivate that self-love for yourself. And I want you to think about the benefit of this because often people don't put enough emphasis on how important this really is. But if you take two different people and one person truly, truly loves and values themselves versus someone who doesn't, the person who truly loves and values themselves is going to show up very differently. They're going to believe things like, I deserve to be treated well. They're going to believe things like, I am good enough. They're going to believe things like, I deserve to have a happy life. They're going to believe things like, I am a beautiful, confident, strong, helpful, kind, loving person. They're going to believe all of these things, right? Someone who doesn't believe those things, imagine that state of mind for that person when they are down on themselves, when they're constantly criticizing themselves, when they don't see their true value. What's going to happen then is when you have a distinction between these two people, the ones that really truly believe that they are worthy are going to behave differently. They're going to have better boundaries. They're going to speak up for themselves. They're going to not let people walk all over them. They're going to say things that are true for them and not be afraid. Whereas someone who, on the other hand, doesn't have those same sets of beliefs and they believe something very different about themselves, they're going to behave in a different way. They're going to cower. They're going to be afraid. They're going to people please. They're going to have codependency tendencies. They're going to try to get people to like them by doing things they might not normally do, right? So the belief structure itself is what helps you feel loving towards yourself, Feel that worthy about yourself. So it's important to really reflect on and look at, what is it that you truly believe? And if you don't know what that is, that's okay. It's easy to figure out. As you probably already know, most women who've experienced emotional abuse believe that if they could just stop thinking about the past, then they would feel better, right? They believe, if only my ex would be different, then I would be okay. But there's flaws in this thinking, because what if the reason that the thoughts won't stop is because you haven't built a foundation inside yourself to feel safe or to feel worthy, right? What if you had that foundation? Then the thoughts could stop, right? That's what I work with women all the time. And then what happens when your ex goes on being your ex, when they continue their toxic behaviors, continue to try to blame you or manipulate you or get control or whatever, right? That's a reality that we have to face as human beings, that other people will go on being them. So if you're believing like, oh, well, I'm not going to be able to get over this or heal or move forward unless they change, then you are at the mercy of them. You are going to be under their control because you believe that unless they change, you can't move forward. So how does this relate to self-love? Well, like I said before, if you don't know what you believe, that's okay. It's easy to figure out. The way you figure this out is to listen to your thoughts. Another way that you can do this is to vent to people. If you've heard yourself speak to friends, if you message people like your family members when you're upset about things, look for the judgments in what you're saying and what you're writing. And you can do this on paper for yourself too. If you want to vent like a journal entry on paper, you can go back and find all of your beliefs. They're right there on the surface. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, I have to dig up the past. I have to go deep into my subconscious mind. It's this cavern of all these like deep, dark beliefs. It's really not that complicated. It's truly right there at the surface. Now, I am trained in subconscious healing work. I know how to identify people's subconscious beliefs. So when my clients come to me and they're struggling with whatever it is that they're trying to change, how they feel, a behavior or habit that they have, I am able to easily, just through conversation and asking the right questions, find out what specifically they believe on a subconscious level. And then what we do is we reframe that and we challenge that. And then we do it repetitively over time. And that is what creates new neural pathways in your brain to give you a new foundation for how you think, which then changes how you feel and changes how you behave. Now, self-love, again, is the most important piece here. If you don't value yourself, right, you are not going to show up in ways that promote healing, okay? So let me give you an example of this. If you value a car, let's say you got a brand new car and it's been a car that you've been just eyeing for decades, it's been on your vision board, you love that car, you're going to take care of that car. You're going to make sure you get it maintained regularly. You're going to keep it clean. You are going to make sure you don't run over potholes when you're driving. You're going to do a lot of things specifically to protect that car, protect that investment, and really value it. If you don't value that car, let's say it's a junker, it's a beater, you're like, it gets me around, like I don't really care what happens to it. You don't truly value it. Chances are you're not going to be treating it the same way as you're treating the other vehicle. So if you are looking at yourself, are you truly valuing yourself? And here's where the self-love, what do I want to call it? The self-love process comes into play. It is a process, especially if you've never been someone who knew your value, especially if you've been someone who was told you weren't valuable. You were made to believe that your value was absolutely zero, if other people in your life had done things to devalue you, discard you, hurt you, right? Made you believe that you weren't worthy, then it's going to be a process for you in order to get that back. Now, the thing is, it's always there. I don't want you to get this confused. Your value was always there since the day you were born, okay? No one can take away your value, right? You already have a lot of value. You have value based on how you show up for people, your uniqueness, the qualities, characteristics, and traits that are inside of you in your soul. You already have that value. What happened was people came along and covered that up. Think of it like a blank canvas. You're a blank canvas and somebody came in and started putting layers of paint on top of the blank canvas. The blank canvas was perfect before anybody started messing with it. And so were you. But your family, your society, your teachers, your friends, your social groups, the society and culture that you live in, all of those things started to shape you. So what we need to do is get rid of all that gunk, move those paint layers out of the way and get you back to seeing your true value, because it's not gone. It's not like you have to create value. You're not creating it. It's already there. You're just removing what's in the way of you being able to feel and see it. And this happens in the subconscious mind, because when you were little, so like when you were born between the ages of 0 and 8 years old, your brain was in a state called theta. This brainwave state is where you're just absorbing everything from your environment. So any little thing that you experienced was starting to form beliefs inside of you, okay? So you're going to carry those with you throughout your whole life. So if you're a child and you're being told you're really a hard worker and you are, super creative and you felt loved and nourished and cared for, right? You're going to grow up much differently than a child who didn't experience that, who experienced the opposite, who was told they were no good, who was witnessing behaviors that made them feel devalued and unworthy, right? And that's going to be the shape that your little mind would take into adulthood. But the thing is, we can reshape that. You don't have to stick with that old program, that outdated program that someone else came in like a computer and just tapped away and made you into something that you're not, okay? A lot of times people get scared of figuring out what that is because they're like, I've only known this my whole life. So what happens if I do feel self-love? What happens if I do actually start to see my true value? Fear of the unknown is a real thing, and it is something that will keep people stuck, okay? Now, some people want to skip over the self-love part. And the reason why is because it's either uncomfortable, it's unfamiliar, like I said before, or they just don't know it's that important, okay? But the problem is when you skip that and then you go straight into coping skills, right? Like, oh, I'm just gonna, start an exercise routine. I'm gonna start meditating. I'm gonna start journaling, right? All those things are helpful. I'm not saying that they're not. I do them too, and I have done them for a long time. But if you don't have this foundational piece of self-love, you might not even take action in those directions. You might not even feel worthy of doing some of those things, okay? And what you'll end up doing is you'll just manage your symptoms instead of getting to the root of the wound, instead of healing it at the source. It's kind of like painting over a wall that's got a big crack in it without repairing the wall, right? Or the foundation or whatever's causing the crack. You're just going to keep seeing that crack and it's going to keep getting bigger, right? We can't just paint over it or hang a picture to cover it up. We've got to figure out, it's probably down somewhere in the foundation, why this is continuing to crack. The paint isn't going to solve the problem. Caulking it isn't going to solve the problem. Putting a picture over it isn't going to solve the problem. We got to get down there. We got to jack up the floors and fix the foundation. That's what's happening inside your mind too. So when you start with self-love, this is I'm talking about real acceptance of who you are. Are you somebody who has made yourself small to accommodate others? Are you someone who wants to say the weird thing but doesn't because you're afraid you'll be judged, right? We need to get you back to just accepting yourself. Like if you want to say the weird thing, say the weird thing. You know, if you want to be you without being worried that people are going to reject and abandon you, we want to get you there, right? Because that self-acceptance, that real like self-cultivated safety, right? The thing inside of you, when you start with self-love, you stop chasing this external validation from other people. You stop changing yourself to fit into the mold of others. You stop over-explaining your behaviors. You stop tolerating just these BS breadcrumbs that people give you, right? Why? Because you know who you are and you love that person. I want you to think about like a child, for instance. If you have a child in your life who you truly love, a baby, maybe it's your own child, maybe it's a niece, a nephew, a grandchild, you love that child, right? And when that child is an infant, you know that child is valuable. You protect that child. You make sure you feed that child. You want to make sure that child is comfortable and feels safe, right? Why aren't we doing this for ourselves? Oh, just because we're bigger humans now, because we've lived on this earth longer than that tiny little baby? We need to give ourselves the same love that we would give to a newborn baby. Why are we not doing that? Oh, I'm an adult now, and oh, I should be able to handle this or that on my own. Right, of course. Babies can't feed themselves. Babies can't nurture themselves. Babies can't console themselves, right? That sort of thing. I get that. We learn that, we grow up, and we become adults. But we also still need to love ourselves. If you don't love yourself, you are not going to show up in ways that reinforce thoughts of worthiness. Here's what I mean by this. When I was in my emotionally abusive relationship, I would say I did not love myself at all. I truly did not know what that felt like. And I believed that other people outside of me needed to show up in ways that validated my worth. So the way that other people treated me was the temperature check on me determining if I was worthy or not. So if someone treated me poorly, that meant I wasn't good enough to be treated well. If someone did something hurtful to me, then that meant I must have deserved it. If someone did something, said something, ignored me, like whatever other people's behavior was, it didn't matter what it was, I would make that mean something about my worth. If they were nice to me, good to me, I made that believe I must be good, right? So being with someone who treated me very hot and cold a lot of times and kept me on that like cognitive dissonance place, it was very confusing because it was like a roller coaster. Sometimes I felt worthy, sometimes I felt not so worthy, right? Sometimes I felt good, sometimes I felt like a horrible person. And so this back and forth became very, very difficult to manage in my life and extremely confusing. And so what did I do? I tried harder to get the good feelings from outside of myself. I would change who I was. I would do things differently. I would walk eggshells. I would behave in ways that I thought other people wanted, not my true self, not my authentic self, just to get the approval and validation so that I would feel like I was good enough. Is this resonating with you? Right? But when I got out of that relationship and when I started my healing journey and I tried all the different things and nothing was working, and I finally got to this point of like, okay, self-love, self-care, like all that stuff, I realized that self-love was the one thing that I had been missing all along. If I had loved myself without worrying about what other people thought about me, how I needed to change to be what other people wanted me to be, I wouldn't have left that relationship so much sooner. I would have been out of there. I would have hightailed it out of there way earlier, because I would have been like, you're not going to treat me like that. Like, you're not going to lie to me that way. I would have been so much more like protective of my heart and myself if I had that foundation of self-love. And this is why I think it's so important that if you do have little kids in your life, that you should be helping them see their value and their worth. If they're your own kids, if they're kids that you have in your family, if your influence can help them see their true value, it's going to make for a much better world. Because I truly also believe that people who are abusers, narcissistic abusers, non-narcissistic abusers, whoever, like just people who are just, hurting others, they don't have self-love. They don't have self-love either, right? And if they truly did love themselves, they wouldn't have a reason to hurt others. It's like the bully on the playground. Deep down that bully's been bullied or that bully has been hurt. And that's why they go out and try to seek out victims to hurt. So when you love yourself, when you value yourself, you are going to have behaviors that align with that. Okay? You're not going to be like, oh, maybe I should be different. Oh, maybe I should make myself smaller. Oh, maybe I shouldn't say that thing. Like, no, you're going to be like, I love me. If you don't love me, then bye. Like, why? I don't need you. Like, I know my value. I know my worth. I don't need anybody else to tell me that I'm good enough. And this is not something that happened to me overnight. This was something that I had to work through. This is something I had to bring out my subconscious beliefs and figure out, well, what do I actually believe? And like I said before, they're not hard to find. But I knew I didn't believe that I was worthy. I knew that I believed things like, I need to try harder. I need to be better. I need to do more. I need to be more. I shouldn't be weird. I shouldn't say those things. I should be quiet. I shouldn't cause conflict. I shouldn't rock the boat. Like, that was sort of the structure of my subconscious beliefs. And then, here's the magic. I started to deconstruct it. I started to be like, wait a second. Maybe I should be weird. Maybe I should say the thing that I want to say. Like, what am I actually afraid of is going to happen? And what if that doesn't happen? Maybe I'm just creating that illusion in my brain, right? Again, this is a process, like I said. It's a deconstruction process. And it's not as hard as you think. I hate this thing. I see it all the time, and I'm just going to put it out there. I see this quote constantly on Instagram and Facebook. No one tells you how hard it is to rewire your mind and blah, blah, blah from all the years. I'm like, I want to vomit. I'm like, ew, no, that's not true. I can literally help you do it in less than 3 months. That's 90 days. No one tells you how long it's going to take. And guess what that is? That's a limiting belief that other people are trying to program into you. Now you're afraid, oh my God, it's going to take 10 years. It isn't. It doesn't have to. If you start with the right tools and you're committed to yourself, period. I've literally never had a client who finished the program and was fully committed, tell me that it didn't work for them. And most of my clients who did that are saying things like, this absolutely changed my life. I had a recent client who said, you should be charging, I think she said 3 times more than what you're charging for this, for the value that she got. It's on Google, so you can read it if you want. But I want you to understand that if you aren't loving yourself, if you aren't fully aware of your value, it's okay. That's normal. Most of us are there, but you can change it. And even though you don't know what that feels like, I don't know what it feels like to love myself. Right? I used to say the same thing. You will eventually, if you're determined and devoted to yourself. And again, like I said before, this is the foundation. This is where you begin. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of painful beliefs that people carry who don't truly love themselves. And one of the ones that I had, and maybe you resonate with this one, is that I have to earn love. Like I have to do something to be lovable. And another one would be like, and I hear this constantly, my beliefs quiz that you can fill out on my website. This is one of the options that you can choose from in one of the belief questions is like, I'm too broken or I am broken. And so a lot of people believe that they're too broken to even love themselves. Like if no one else will love me, then I can't, of course, I can't love myself. So this like belief that you have to earn love or that you're too broken to even love yourself these are just false stories. These are just lies. Okay. So you would not yell at a child for getting hurt, right? Like if your child was walking down the sidewalk with you and tripped on the sidewalk and skinned their knee, you'd be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? You'd comfort that child. You'd say, I'm so sorry. Like, well, let's get you cleaned up. We'll get you a Band-Aid and all of that, right? But survivors of abuse are the ones who end up criticizing themselves, berating themselves, beating themselves up for how they reacted to the pain, right? So I'm using this example of a child skinning their knee. That's the pain. That's your emotional pain. Like you have been hurt, right? But you are then, instead of comforting that child and, picking them up and saying, come on, let's heal from this. Let's get you cleaned up. Survivors of abuse are often telling themselves they were wrong, or I should have done better. I shouldn't have fallen, and that's not going to help you heal. That's just like holding you in the past. That's holding you like, okay, moving forward, I'm not going to, I'm going to pay more attention on my walk next time. I'm going to make sure I don't trip. Or maybe instead of like, I don't know, skipping, I'll just walk more carefully, whatever. But healing from emotional abuse starts when you stop being the abuser to yourself. The abuser doesn't treat you with love. You have to treat you with love. You have to show you that you're valuable. You have to stop saying the mean things to yourself and stop telling yourself oh, you should have done this differently and you should have done that differently. And you are beating yourself up when you do that. And awareness is key. You've got to pay attention. You're not going to heal if you keep treating yourself the way you're always treated by everybody else in your life. And you might be thinking, oh, well, but that's the story I keep repeating in my head. That's what I keep hearing. That's what I was told my whole life growing up. I get it. I understand. But you are in control of what goes through your brain. No one else. And though that might have been the story that was written in your brain, you are in control of writing a new story. So what if the part of you that feels unworthy is actually the part that's most deserving of love right now? Okay? I understand also that loving yourself can feel forced. It can feel fake, or maybe some people even think it feels selfish. I've heard that before too. And many women who have experienced traumatic relationships, emotional abuse at any point in their lives feel like that if they let go of that pain from their trauma, that they're letting their abuser off the hook. Oh, if I'm no longer suffering, if I'm no longer in pain and struggling, then that means what they did to me wasn't that bad. And this is a subconscious pattern a lot of people carry. So subconsciously, not consciously, like you're repeating that pattern where consciously you're saying, I want to heal. I want to move forward. I don't want them in control of my life. I don't want them being able to trigger me and upset me, right? But if you love yourself and you're happy and you're moving forward and you are just having this amazing life, a part of you in your subconscious mind is scared. It is afraid. And what could that fear be? For some people, it's letting the abuser off the hook. Well, that means that what they did to me wasn't that bad. Or that means that if I'm healed, then I must be okay with what they did. So unconsciously, subconsciously, you may live out this suffering and struggle so much because you don't want to let them off the hook. And again, I'm not saying that they should be off the hook, but the reality is what happened happened, and people will be people. They will behave in ways that we don't like. They will do things that are not okay. But we are in control of ourselves. That's it. We may have influence in our lives with other people, but the way we feel and what we believe is up to us. Maybe you've heard this, I don't remember this quote, but I remember the general phrase that like holding on to anger or let's call it self-hatred, right? Because if you're not self-loving, well, what are you, right? But that's like drinking poison. You've probably heard this, and hoping that the other person gets sick from it or dies from it, right? But if you're holding that inside of you, right, what's doing it to you? It's not doing it to anyone else. Loving yourself, truly, truly understanding your value does not excuse what anyone else did to you. It doesn't condone their behavior. It doesn't make it okay or right. What it does is it ends the story where they keep winning and you keep losing. So if you want to be at the top of the mountain with your hands in the air and super pumped that you've made it out of the swamp and up the mountain, right? Then you have to start loving yourself, period. They will continue to have control over how you feel as long as you allow it. Okay? If you're like, I don't want that anymore, well, then I'm here to tell you it's possible for you to take back your emotional control. You get to decide. And even though right now you might be like, I don't see how that's possible. Believe me, please believe me, I've done this myself and I've helped countless women and other women who I haven't even helped who use the same process, same results. Okay? It is a subconscious healing tool that I use and it works. It's the only thing that's ever worked for me. So if you're thinking here, well, I don't know how to love myself. I understand that too, because I remember saying that, and that's okay. Self-love, here's the thing, is a practice, it's a process, it's a choice of action that you do that reinforces your value and worth. And then what happens is you start to feel it. So you're not just going to like automatically feel self-love, especially if you've been abused. And especially if you've been programmed to believe that you're not worthy. But the more you practice it, with each action that you take, the more you change your thinking about how you think about yourself, the more you'll begin to feel it little by little. And then you'll be like, no, you're not going to talk to me like that. And absolutely not am I going to break this boundary for anybody, right? Like you'll start feeling confident, you'll start feeling secure, and you'll start feeling really good in your own skin. But again, it's not something that happens overnight. It is a process. But it's based on what you think in your mind repetitively and how you show up for yourself. So I'm wondering if any of this sounds like you, if you're resonating with this. If you are, I'd love to hear from you. You can message me on Instagram or Facebook and let me know. And I'm also wondering if any of these beliefs resonated with you. If so, right, like which one really stood out for you? Or maybe others came up for you when I was kind of rattling them off. Maybe you're like, oh no, but I felt this instead. Whatever that is, try to really challenge that. Try to really inspect, like, is this really true? Like, is it 100% true? Would every person on earth be like, yes, this is true? Or could other people see it a different way? And what would they say? So, for example, let's say that one of the things that you are struggling with is that because you don't have that really deep self-love yet, maybe you have been told your whole life that you are too much, You're just too much. So you're always walking eggshells and you're always trying to make yourself small for other people, to make other people comfortable because you're too much, right? Do you think that there might be other people in this world who would look at you and be like, you're not too much at all? Like, I actually really value that. Like, for instance, let's say your true nature is you're really extroverted, you ask a lot of questions, you have big emotions and feelings, and you just are like a ball of energy, okay? There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Do you realize that there are people in this world who gravitate towards that, who want that? That there are people who wish they could be like that? And then there are other people who are telling you that you're too much. It's crazy. Just because some people tell you that you're too much doesn't mean you really are. It might just mean that they can't hold the space for you. They don't have the capacity for your amazing personality. And when you start to make these shifts about all the things that you're thinking, this is where you be like, oh my God, like I actually do like myself. I don't actually think that. I've just been made to believe it. Okay? This is where I want you to start really exploring and shifting. If you just let these thoughts run through your mind and you just believe what other people have told you and you constantly let that broken record keep playing without ever stopping it and saying, wait, is this really true? Do I really want to believe this? Do I want to keep believing this? What is it giving me? How is it serving me to actually believe this? And what other ways could I possibly perceive this as? Right? So I challenge you, pay attention, see what those thoughts are, and let's start to change it. If this episode has hit home for you and you're realizing that maybe you've been skipping the foundation of self-love, then maybe it's time to start doing something different. If you're interested, I offer free 30-minute consultations to help you get that clarity on maybe where your foundation is cracked, maybe what you need to do next. There's no pressure. I am not like a high pressure salesperson or anything like that. I just want to have a conversation with you and help you reconnect to yourself, and I will listen to you. And I will let you tell me your story, and I'll be able to hear your beliefs and whatever you're saying. If you want me to tell you them, I certainly will. And then I can guide you. I can say, you know what? I think, this would be a good route to try. Oh, you've not tried this? Maybe try this. Oh, you want help with rumination? I have a $15 course for that. Like whatever that might be. You want community? I have that. You want to work with me one-on-one? I have that. You want to be in my Voxer? I have that. Right? So I'll just guide you and help you. The link will be in the bio. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. And thanks so much for being here. And I'll talk to you guys next week.